most of them out here. And today I've got my ultimate Goliath Brawler build guide. So I wanted to go a bit more in depth this time than my normal guides, because this is my favorite, my hands down favorite build at the moment for any house. It's just a really effective build for PvP and also for clearing PvE content as well. And it's just really fun to play basically as well. You just the raw destruction that you do with the Exertion Delay Brawler. So I thought I'd just explain how you create an Exertion Delay Brawler, and what stats you want to use, what weapons you want to equip, what skills you want to take, just the whole sort of thing, and also kind of talk about how it fits into a team and how you use it in PvP. This one's one I made earlier, but I'll just I'll make one from scratch. So if you've got enough money, you can recruit a guy at higher level. So instead of just doing a green juve, you go up and go say Mighty Ganger. Now they'll often have injuries, so you might have to, if you don't want to take these injuries, you might have to create the fighter, hire him, and then delete that fighter again by doing layoff, and then recruit a new one, and keep going until you find one that doesn't have any injuries, like this one. And then you choose the characteristics that you want them to have, and then that's pretty good looking. And then you want to take, it doesn't really matter too much which whether you take resilience or athletic. I wouldn't take agile or healthy, but yeah, resilient or athletic are probably the two you want. I think toughness is actually the preferable one. I usually stack toughness, whereas I usually only take strength up to 12. But yeah, you can choose either one. You can choose strength if you think that's more aesthetically pleasing. It doesn't matter too much. Then you want to go for alertness here, I'd say. There's an argument for willpower because it gives you more stun resistance and also gives you stress resistance. Willpower gives you stun resistance and stress resistance. So the stun resistance stops you getting stunned, obviously. The stress resistance means that you'll lose debuff effects over time. So this character's got 21% stun stress resistance, so that means a 21% chance of losing a debuff at the start of each turn. So this character uses exertion to get extra action points, but that gives them a debuff that makes all their action point costs higher from the next round onwards. So that stress resistance can help get rid of that debuff. But it's not really needed because you're going to do so much damage in that one turn that it won't really matter that you've got a debuff the next turn. And that can be cleansed off by other characters as well. If you've got a leader that has the heroic rally skill, that cleanses up to 3 debuffs. So you can keep them pretty much cleansed with that as well. But anyway, so willpower, there is an argument for willpower, but I like alertness because alertness gives you higher initiative, and it also gives you hit resistance, which gives the enemy hits a chance to graze, so they only do a small amount of damage, and the blue numbers will come up with just a little bit of damage instead of the full damage. But the initiative as well is particularly helpful for this particular build. So yeah, I'd go for observant and take the alertness. And then for the last one, you definitely want to go melee prowess. So you might be tempted to go accuracy to get more crit, and that's not necessarily a bad choice. But the melee prowess, you definitely don't want to be grazing. You want to be penetrating through their hit resistance, and the melee prowess will help you get through the hit resistance. And also, if they have melee evasion, it'll help you get through that as well. So it gives you melee precision and bypass melee evasion. And yeah, just hitting the target is like the #1 priority. So I'd choose those starting things, and then you hire your fighter. And then what you want to do then is when you go in here initially, you won't have any of these skill things unlocked. So you need to level up a little bit first to get some unlocked. So if you spend a couple of points, then you'll see that these will fill up. You level up, and then you level 2, and now you can get access to some skills in here. But you still won't have access to your ganger skills, which is so you've got these 3, but there's another level that doesn't get unlocked until you get to rank 5. So if you're playing from level 1, then you'll have to slowly unlock this. But this character's going to be level 7 already, rank 7, already. So I can spend a few points. So basically you want to max out your melee prowess as high as it can go. You want to get alertness up to 12, which just lets you get any alertness skills that you need and gives you a little bit of hit resistance. So 12 is the minimum that you need to unlock the highest level of a skill. Willpower you also want as 12. Strength you also want at 12. So you want all of the skills, all of the attributes that you're going to use for skills, you want to get them up to 12. And you want a bit of accuracy as well, just to get a bit of extra crit. Now, as you level up, once you get past level 5, you'll start getting virtues and vices. So this vice is a really good one for a brawler, minus 10 range damage. So this brawler is not going to do very much range damage at all. They may pull out a pistol occasionally, but mostly they're not going to do any range damage. So that's a really good vice to get. And then you can go through and sort of choose whatever skills that you need to make up the build. I'll just switch to this character that's already got the skills selected, so it's a bit quicker. But yeah, basically the core of the Exertion Delay Brawler is these two skills, Exertion and Delay. So what you want to do is, on the first round of a PvP match, you move your brawler up as close as you can get to the enemy while still keeping him safe. So you basically on the first turn, you just want the brawler not to die or to get any debuffs that are going to cause him to not be able to unleash as much damage on the next turn. And then you want to use this skill, Delay. Basically, that sacrifices 20 of your action points, and it gives you 15 extra action points and 15 extra movement points on the next turn, on the second turn, and it gives you plus 50 initiative. Now, basically, that's all you want to do. And you can also pre-buff yourself as well. So if you've got Iron Will, you can spend that now, and that'll give you 75% hit resistance and stun resistance for the following turn, for the rest of the first turn and the second turn. So you can kind of pre-buff yourself with that if you're worried you might need it and you might not be able to use it on the second turn. But usually you'll save your Iron Will as a self-heal, because it also heals you 50 HP. But because your toughness is quite high, this one's got 14 base, you get 156% increased healing from healing received. So instead of getting 50, you'll get 125 or thereabouts. So it's quite good to save your Iron Will and use it after you get damaged, but it does make you much more tanky with this hit resistance and stun resistance. That'll can take you up to close to 100% if you've got some other buffs as well. So it can be good to sort of pre-cast it, so you don't take hardly any damage when you get hit. But yeah, if you use it later, you can heal yourself and then become tanky afterwards as well, which is the normal sort of way you would use it. It's quite good. But yeah, so delay and exertion are the main thing. So you delay, and then the next turn when you activate and you go out to kill the enemy, you'll have 15 extra movement points, 15 extra action points, and you'll be able to use this skill, exertion, that doesn't cost you anything, and it gives you an extra 15 more action points, so you've got even more action points to kill the enemy. And just on the point of action points as well, you would normally pair this as well with an order leader. So the leader will have the ability to use their order skill to give order attack, which will give this character extra 10 action points. So you just sort of stack this character up with as many action points as you can. The leader also has another order that they can use called Heroic Order Blitz. And that gives them, you can put up to 3 stacks of minus 10 AP cost of strike onto another character. So ideally you want to put both of these onto your brawler. So you'll do order attack, which is a skill that appears in game, costs you 15 AP, and you can put 10 extra action points onto another character. So you do that to your brawler. And then you'll also cast this order blitz onto the same brawler, which will mean his first strike will be minus 30. So you put 3 stacks, so 10, 10, 10, minus 30 for their first strike skill that they use in the next turn. So we just go back to our brawler again. So our brawler would normally have 50 action points that regenerate each turn, but because of the delay, they're going to get an extra 15, so they'll have 65, and then they'll cast exertion, so that means they've got 80, and then they've got plus 10 from the order attack from the leader, so they've got 90, and then they've got the minus 30 cost of their first strike, so their first strike would normally cost 30, they'll get that for free, so they're sort of essentially 120 action points worth of attacks now, And then if they don't use all their movement, they can also entrench for another 20 action points. So that'll be sort of a total of maybe 150 action points if you think of it that way. Or it's really 120 action points plus a free attack, a free strike skill. So that's basically what they're going to come out of the gate with on round 2, like 150 effective action points, basically, 120 actual action points to use, and and they'll have a free strike to start off with as well. So then you run up to the enemy. You usually you would use 2 one-handed weapons. So that's the other thing about this build. Because Goliath has this perk where they can change weapons for 5 AP less. So what you would normally do is you might start off with 2 one-handed weapons equipped. So usually I go for a power maul and a spudjacker for lots of stun. But you could go for a sword and a power maul as well. And then you use your free strike that normally would cost 30 AP because you've got 2 weapons. So you use a free strike on them to start with, and then that means that it doesn't cost you any AP. So you've still got 120 AP, and then that's going to do quite a lot of damage with both weapons hitting, and also it's going to have quite a good chance of stun because this has got 90% stun chance. And the Spudjacker's got 50% stun chance. So assuming they don't graze, there's going to be quite a good chance that you're going to stun with your first attack, or they don't miss, that is. And then once you've done that first attack, this weapon will use up some of its ammunition. So the Power Maul actually has ammunition, and it uses 1. So then what you do is you also take this other skill called Melee Prowess. And basically what that means is every time you reload a weapon, your next melee offensive skill costs 50% less. So you've gotten a free strike skill that you've used, and then you hit them, and then you need to reload your weapon. So you spend 5 AP to reload your weapon, and then you've got 50% reduction in your AP cost. So you also take this skill called Chain Hit, and basically what that does, it costs a little bit more, it costs 40, but it allows you to hit 2 times with each hand. So now that you've done the reload and you've got 50% reduction to your action point costs, now you can do a chain hit, but instead of costing 40, it'll only cost 20. So then your chain hit them 2 times with each weapon, so 4 times in total, and then most of the time the enemy will be dead. Like that's going to kill them, like with the initial strike plus the chain hit. That's going to pretty much kill most enemies. If not, keep hitting them until they die, obviously. But yeah, usually that's going to kill them. And then you also take this skill called Persistence, which means every time you put an enemy fighter out of action, you get 75% reduced cost to your next strike skill. So now you've got another strike. It's not free, but it's 75% reduced. So instead of being 30 AP, it only costs about 7 AP. And that's going to be on your next strike skill. So you don't need to strike straight away. You could save that and have it later. So what you might do instead is, now that your weapon needs to be reloaded again, you can reload your weapon again, because every time you use your stun maul, it's going to need to be reloaded. So you reload your weapon again, and that gives you minus 50% cost of any melee offensive skill again. So this time, instead of opening up with strike, you can open up with charge. Now, charge has a range of up to 20 meters. So one of the main problems with this character is that he'll have enough action points to probably kill most of the players on the field, but he'll run out of movement. He won't be able to reach them all. So this skill charge can actually be a bit finicky to target. Sometimes that you can't get it to fire, or you can't get it to become available. Mainly if the enemy is engaged with another fighter, that'll quite often stop you from being able to charge them. Or if there's a terrain obstacle like touching that fighter's base, you might not be able to charge them. Or if there's any obstacles in the way, or there's a level change. But quite often you can get it to work. So this is just sort of an optional thing. Because you're potentially going to be killing about 4 characters in one turn with this guy, so you're going to have multiple opportunities to try to charge. So even if you can only charge on 1 or 2 of them, that's still going to help you a lot with your movement range. So yeah, every time you just engage with a new fighter, try to get your charge off. Just reload your weapon before you do it, and then your charge, instead of costing so normally it costs 17 AP with one-handed weapon, but with the 50% reduction from reloading your weapon, it'll only cost you about 7 AP, I think. Or no, about 8 AP, sorry. So basically you charge, but instead of charging with both weapons, you just switch to only using your stun maul, just charge with one weapon. So that instead of 34, it'll be 17 AP. But then because of your persistence, because of your melee prowess, because you just reloaded your weapon, it'll only cost you 8 AP. So it costs you 5 AP to reload your weapon, plus 8 AP, so 13 AP to do the charge. Or you could just, yeah, or you could do it both weapon charge as well, but it'll cost a bit more that way. Anyway, so you just use that to cross the distance basically, so you get the free 20 meter move distance with a one-handed weapon charge. Get over there, and then once you're in melee combat, then you can do your strike, which is reduced by 75%, because remember you didn't use it yet. You got the minus 75% to your next strike. So you do a double-handed strike with both weapons at the same time. Normally it costs 30, it only costs 7. And then that will probably, they might already be dead already if you got a couple of crits in there. Otherwise, you can reload your weapons and then do a chain hit again. Instead of being 40 AP, it'll only be 20. Or you can just use it one-handed. And then another thing about this build is that you've taken Killing Spree. So this build, you kill a lot of characters. You're almost certainly going to kill two characters in a turn. So after the first one, you get a 50% damage increase. This skill gives you plus 50% damage every time you kill a character for the first 2 characters, and it lasts until the end of the battle. So after you kill the first guy, you now get a 50% damage increase. So that's why I'm saying, like, after you've done the charge that does a one-handed hit, if it crits, you potentially could do 100 damage or something off that one charge. Charge itself has an extra 25% crit chance, bypasses melee evasion, and it does have a slight minus to hit precision. So you might graze, but it's not too bad. And as I said, you only do a one-handed weapon, so usually, so you don't get as much of as much of a risk of the graze. And that's the good thing about this build as well. You've got multiple choices of, you can do the charge, you can just walk into combat and just strike them normally if you want to have more accuracy, or you can use the chain hit that's got minus 20 hit precision, but you get double the amount of attacks for quite cheap. So you can, and with the and you can always choose to either use one weapon or 2 weapons. The other aspect about this hit precision is that you take this skill called Fury. So the first time that you do a graze, or one of your hits is evaded, you get plus 30 melee precision and plus 30 bypass melee evasion. So as soon as that first hit either grazes or is evaded, after that you'll get very few hits, grazes and evasions, because your accuracy is going to be much higher. And if you come up against a target that's got high hit resistance or high melee evasion, you can always not use your chain hit or your charge and just use normal strike to get that little bit of extra precision. Lots of options with choosing between either using one weapon or 2 weapons, and also you can switch between weapons. So the sword has got minus 15 hit precision. The Spudjack has got only minus 10 hit precision, and same with the Power Maul. So these ones are quite good for getting the initial hit and also potentially getting a stun. As soon as you've landed a stun, then the enemy character loses all of their evasion and all of their hit resistance. So you don't need precision anymore once they've been stunned. But quite often they won't have very high hit resistance anyway, so it doesn't matter. But if they do have high hit resistance, you might want to just keep plugging away with just the Power Maul, just trying to get that stun, because you only have to land one hit and then they're stunned, and then you're off to the races. So you've got a lot of it's sort of like a Swiss Army knife with all these different weapons that you've got. The other weapon option that you might want to take is the two-handed massive axe. So the massive axe, especially after you've gotten a couple of stacks of Killing Spree. So once you get 1 stack, you do 50% extra damage. 2 stacks, you do 100% extra damage. So once you got your 100% extra damage, you're just going to be killing characters a lot more easily. You know, you could potentially charge and just kill them with the charge sometimes, or you know, your first set of two-handed striking with both hands can kill the character without you having to use a second attack on them. But what you might run into sometimes is a character that's stacking skills like perseverance, I think it's called. I'll just quickly make our new character here. So there's a bunch of defensive skills that the enemy can take. I'll just quickly level this character up. So if this character takes self-preservation, for example, then a max level gives you plus 35 hit resistance once you get heavily wounded or gravely wounded. And then there's also defensive reaction. It gives them a damage absorption after they take Overwatch or ambush hit. That potentially could be on the character. There's survival stim, gives you hit resistance and crit resistance after you get heavily wounded. And then there's a leader ability, lead through pain, that gives you like hit resistance, crit resistance, and stun resistance once you get into gravely or heavily wounded. So there's all these things that will trigger once a character gets to gravely or heavily wounded, and that can slow you down a little bit with your brawler. So, you know, another option that you can do is if you suspect that a character might have those skills, once you've got your killing spree up and you're doing the double damage, if you switch then to your massive axe, then that will only cost you 5 AP. Normally it costs 10 AP to equip a two-handed weapon, but because Goliaths have their special trait, it only costs you 5 AP. And now you'll be doing 44 to 60 damage, but because you're doing double damage because of your killing spree, that'll be 90 to 120 damage. And then if you open up with a charge, for example, you'll be doing having plus 25% crit chance on your normal crit chance. Also, by now you would have done at least one chain hit. So I forgot to mention that about chain hit. As soon as you do one chain hit, you get plus 35% melee damage for the whole rest of the turn. So in addition to your 100% and additional here, you're another 35. So you're doing 135% extra damage after the second kill. So yeah, so your axe here is actually, instead of doing 91 to 11, it's actually doing 220 to whatever. Like, it's doing a lot of damage, and that's only if it doesn't crit. If it crits, then it's doing a lot more damage. So basically the idea is, if you suspect that your enemy's got a lot of defensives that are going to trigger when it gets to gravely wounded, you just kill them in one shot, and then they don't get to use any of those defensive abilities because they're dead. So two-handed weapons are really good for just one-shotting people. So once you've stacked up a lot of crit, a lot of bonus to your damage and everything with your first couple of kills, you might want to switch to this weapon to just one-shot people, to avoid that kind of stuff. And what else have we got here? So defensively, I think we've covered, so Fury, once you've got a graze, that will give you extra precision and bypass evasion. Killing Spree gives you extra 50% damage after the first one, and then 100% of extra damage after the second kill. Vanguard is, I do take two defensive things on this character. So Vanguard gives you 75 extra HP, which I think is straight up the best defensive perk that you can get. They're defensive passive, that you can get. All the other passives, some of the other passives might be like equally good or almost equally good, but just 75 extra HP just means that you, instead of 200, you got 275. It's nearly 50% more, and it just gives you that extra buffer from just getting a one shot. In PvP especially, like it's all about whether you're going to get killed in that in the opposing player's turn before you get another activation. If you can survive that turn, then you can pop Iron Will, get another 125, 130 HP back, plus get hit resistance and stun resistance, and then you're going to survive. So yeah, but also, as I said before, you can put the Iron Will on beforehand, and then you got this 75% hit resistance protecting your 275 HP in the first place. So that can be a much more effective way to go, and that's why Iron Will, I think, is the best defensive active skill that you can get, because you can either use it to heal yourself and then make yourself really tanky, or you can use it to make yourself really tanky before you even take the damage the previous turn. It lasts until the end of the following turn. So yeah, so this character potentially can cast Delay and Iron Will on the first turn, and then on the second turn just charge around killing everyone, basically. I think that was pretty much everything I wanted to say about it, except for I just wanted to explain a couple of other optional other skills that you could take instead. So this is the build that I use, and I think it's pretty much the best way to go. There are other things you can do though. You can make them more killy by stacking a little bit more. Potentially you can make it a little bit more killy by taking some passives, some actives, that buffs that gives you more crit and stuff like that. And on this side of things, you could switch, like say you could switch Vanguard for Rear Guard, for example. So Rear Guard, instead of giving the extra 75 HP, it actually takes away 50 HP, so you only have 150, but it gives you 15 extra action points per turn. So that would give this character another 15 action points to kill enemies with. But yeah, I find it's not necessary. Like you're going to run out of movement before you run out of action points to kill people most of the time. So this extra HP that you get from Vanguard just makes him much more likely to survive if there happens to be anyone left to kill him. But the main kind of defense that this character is going to get is that he's hopefully going to kill everybody that's nearby that potentially could hurt the character. Yeah, when you unleash this character, like quite often they're going to be able to pretty reliably kill 2 enemy players in their turn. So if you beat the other player in initiative, which you quite often will, because you'll have the extra 50 initiative from delay, so you're going to probably beat the other player's character in initiative, and if you can reach that character and kill them, then they won't actually get a turn at all in that activation. And so then the next turn, when they can potentially get an activation, you will have hopefully killed a couple of their guys. They'll still have people left, but there's going to be less opposing characters that are going to be able to gang up on this character to kill them. And with their extra 75 HP, hopefully that'll be enough to keep them alive. But honestly, like, they're just so devastating that quite often the enemy, once this guy has his turn, the enemy player is pretty much done. Like, they're broken then already. Like, they've lost 2 or 3 of their characters. Even if they kill this guy, I usually run with 2 of these brawlers. So even if they kill one, he's already killed 3 of their guys, and then my second brawler kills the rest of their team, or kills one of them, and then they've got 1 guy left against my 4. And then you're going to win. Basically that's the thing. The real weak point of this brawler build really is just not being able to get to the enemy. So if there's a lot of Overwatch fire that they have to get through to make it to the enemy, each time they take an Overwatch hit, it gives them minus 10 movement points. That can, if they can't make it to the enemy, then that's the one thing that will kill this build. Or if they've got a lot of dead eyes and they're jumping around on platforms that don't have any zip lines to them and stuff, so the brawler physically can't reach them, obviously that will be a pretty good defense. But normally they've got a high amount of movement, so they'll have 60 movement points from the start of their turn, plus the delay will give them another 15, so they have 75, plus the exertion will give them another 15, so they're going to have 90 movement. And then also you can use the charge, like I said, to give you an extra 20 movement here and there, maybe once or twice during their attacks. So you're going to have enough movement to be able to move over almost the whole map, So generally they can reach anywhere, as long as there is actually a path to get to the opponent that they're trying to kill. And yeah, I was just going to quickly talk about some other skill options. So just give this guy some points and things. Yeah, so other skill options that you could take, as I said, rear guard, that gives you extra 15 action points, but I don't think you need any more killing power with this character. Like, you just need more movement, really, is the only thing. There's stuff like this momentum that gives you extra crit. So after their first critical hit, which will be on the first character they kill, they'll end up having plus 20% crit after that. So it just makes them kill faster. But as I said, I feel like it's got ample, enough killing power. This one gives you bypass stun resistance, so you can get that initial stun on characters that have high hit resistance. So once you've landed the stun, that strips all their hit resistance. But I find that, with those other skills I mentioned, I have enough precision to get through most characters' hit resistance anyway, so I don't normally take that one. You could take all these defensive type skills like survival stim and girding stim and that kind of thing, but the defensive reaction. I won't read all of the descriptions, but basically all of these passives that you take are going to be replacing something pretty essential in the build that does a lot of damage. This whole build is kind of like it's like a missile that you release, and then he just does huge amounts of damage to the enemy team. So you don't want to ruin the essential function of the build, which is just to do highest amounts of damage. So the only thing you could really take out is the rear guard, the Vanguard. Sorry, if you don't want to have that extra 75 HP, and you could swap that out for one other thing. Maybe you could take rear guard for the more action points, but that'll make you even more vulnerable. Or you take killing spree for the crit, perhaps. I wouldn't take this because we don't take any war cries, so there's not much point taking that. This is another defensive skill. It doesn't really go very well with this build. Rage Stim. A lot of people see this. They get plus 20% extra crit starting from the third turn. But this character, he kills all of the enemy team in the second turn. So there's going to be no third turn. Or by the third turn, the enemy's going to be so crippled that it won't really matter. So second turn is when it happens. So Rage Stim is no good. Now on the active side of things, you could take like these, you could take a debuff or something like this, but you don't want to debuff them because they're going to be dead at the end of the turn anyway. So there's no point debuffing them. Same with all these debuffs. Readiness is a possibility. You could take this, gives you extra crit chance, but the only thing I would probably really take that instead of is Iron Will, the defensive ability. And I think Iron Will is it's just such a good defensive ability that it outweighs the little bit of advantage that you get out of this melee crit chance. But this melee crit chance would be a good choice. It does make you do a bit of extra damage. Damage absorption, preparation is a pretty good skill generally for a tanky character, but this character kind of needs most of their skills to do the damage and for the movement and for the extra movement points and action points and everything. So you as I said, it's only really Iron Will would be the only thing I would take out, and preparation I'd say is not as good as Iron Will as a defensive active. We've pretty much got most of these skills. We've got Delay, Iron Will, and Exertion. Power Strike is not needed because you've already got a better version in Chain Hit basically. I think that's pretty much it for the skills. The only other thing I was going to say in terms of team composition. So this is the sort of team I run with it. So I have two brawlers. Have these two brawlers that are both the same similar build, Delay-Exertion Brawlers, so they attack on the second turn and mess people up. Got an order leader that basically just stacks up action points and free attacks on the two brawlers. And then we've got a heavy that has the AP aura. So he's got this weapons check aura that gives you 15 extra AP. So that can also apply to the brawlers potentially. Or he can switch to safeguard, which makes it cost the enemies shooting costs twice as much if they try to shoot your team, if they're within the aura. So basically, your team's going to kind of hide out of line of sight probably, and this heavy is going to be putting the safeguard aura on the brawlers to keep them safe until it's time to sort of unleash them on the second turn. And potentially you can also take some buffs on the heavy to cast on the brawler. The heavy can also soak up. This heavy is a very tanky build. I've done there's another build video for the heavy support tank. That's that character. He can also just run forward and soak up Overwatch shots, because Overwatch takes every Overwatch shot you take takes 10 movement points away from you. So basically, you don't want that to happen to your brawlers because you want them to have as much range as they can, so they can reach the enemy and kill them. So sometimes you'll want to use this heavy to come out at the end of the first turn, or even at the start of the second turn sometimes, and soak up Overwatch shots. But more likely, the heavy is going to come out first, put down the auras, and then everyone's going to move into his auras. And then these two characters are going to come out later. And this Saboteur is actually also built very tanky as well. And so is the Order Leader as well. So any of these three characters, they're all very tanky. They can move out and soak up Overwatch shots to clear the way for the brawlers. They can also body block them. So if the enemy realizes that they're vulnerable and is able to get a shot on them and tries to kill the brawlers, and then they get them down to half HP or something, you actually move one of these tanks physically in front of the brawler to block line of sight so that the enemy can't kill them before they get to activate. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Basically, the first turn you buff up, you cast Delay, which is going to make you give you a big boost to initiative. So you'll probably go first in the second round. You buff them up with your leader with extra action points, protect them with your other guys. You use your Sab to cast Chem Synth on them. That gives an extra 10 movement points to them, as well as giving another 15 damage absorption to make your brawlers a little bit tougher. And then at the start of the second turn, you activate one of your brawlers. He'll most likely go first because of the high initiative. You kill at least 2, maybe 3 of the enemy players. And they probably don't get a turn if you went first because you killed their guy that they were going to activate. And then second activation, you activate your other brawler, and he goes out and kills the rest of their team ideally. Really fun build. Does the most explosive, the most damaging and exciting build that I've played with, and the most fun, frankly. I just wanted to do this sort of exhaustive video about the Exertion Delay Brawler. Hope I pretty much covered everything about it. Now I'm going to probably try and move on to do some builds with some Orlocks or Escher builds. Anyway, thanks guys. Catch you next time.